A few years back, I went to a fairly small school, in the Midwest, Great Lakes area. I started my day pretty much like usual. I went to the cafeteria and got a muffin. I was running a bit late, so the bell had rung a while before I even left the cafeteria. I made it about halfway to my class when I hear a couple loud pops and some screams and stuff. I headed back towards the cafeteria, thinking someone had set off a firecracker. I made it pretty close towards the cafeteria before I noticed that people were still running and screaming. I was in a hallway that formed a T intersection with the hallway that led to the cafeteria. I was maybe 20 feet away when I saw a kid I knew go running past the end of the hall, chased by a man holding a gun. He got shot, got up and kept running. The man shot again a couple times, but by then I was sprinting back to my AP history class. I made it back to my classroom just as the PA system announced the lockdown. I told the teacher what happened. He was an ex-Marine, non-combat, but he was still a solid, 6'8" dude. He stood up, went to a wall locker and pulled out a baseball bat, told us to get in the corner, and stood by the door. The teachers were honestly amazing that day. One of the other teachers likely saved the running kid's life. We will call him William from now on. William kept running all the way until he got outside this teacher's room. We will call the teacher Samuel. Mr. Samuel had done about the same thing my teacher had done, except that he also had a bulletproof vest handy in his wall locker. I have no idea why he felt the need to keep a vest, but he was a very smart man, just being careful, I guess. He put it on, unlocked his door, and pulled William into his room, locking the door after. Another teacher, we'll call him Hayden, then chased one of the gunmen from the building. Mr. Hayden happened to be a rather large football coach. He was the study hall monitor, and initially chased the shooter out the cafeteria as well. He stopped to check in on the boys, and when he realized that the shooter was still pursuing someone, left and started chasing him down. He was shot once. I knew this because my friends saw it happening. I guess the shooter was out of bullets by the time Mr. Hayden chased him out the building. He then went back and sat with the boys until the paramedics arrived. I'll never be able to express my gratitude for what he did for my friends that day, even though most of them are gone now. Just the fact that he was there is nice to know. It was just so surreal. One minute it was all screaming, the next I was just sitting where I normally sat. I threw up a couple hours later, when the adrenaline wore off and I got home. The running kid I saw survived, but he will never walk again, and it's been years. 3 other kids passed away, from execution-style gunshots to back of their heads. I later learned that I had walked by the table where the shooter sat. Since then, I've had problems with both opiates and sleep aids, though I managed to kick both of those habits before college. I still have flashbacks from time to time, and some nightmares, but at least I can sleep. It only gets bad around the anniversary, and sometimes when I see other shootings on the news. I still never sit with my back to the door, unless I absolutely have to. I still jump at gunshots and car backfires every once in a while. I'm relatively lucky. I was really only close with one of the guys, though I liked and talked to the other 2. It absolutely destroyed some people I know. Drugs and pills have already ended one kid, and I see it slowly destroying another one every time I check my Twitter feed. Other friends still have trouble sleeping, and I still get semi-regular calls just to talk about it. PTSD is terrible. I still hate being home from college. I don't think I really got out of my funk until I got out of town. Last year, during the whole creepy clown craze, a few clowns on Twitter threatened to come to our school at 11 a.m. and unalive us. The school picked up on this, and sent out emails to parents and planned a lockdown at 10:30. Sitting in history class, I hear the familiar sound of the lockdown alarm, the teacher rushing to the windows and door, closing and locking them. To be honest, I wasn't that worried. I thought that it was just another blank threat online, and nothing would happen, and my day would go back to normal, but there was still an excitement to lock down. After 40 minutes of silence, sitting on the cold floor in the corner of the room, the emergency green flashing light turned off, and the air conditioning slowly fell silent, and the hallway lights switched off. The school had cut the power. At this point, me and my classmates were staring at each other. We all knew that something real was going on. After 10 minutes or so, we could all hear a faint banging noise from down the corridor, shortly followed by heavy and fast footsteps. Someone was running down the hallway. They started banging on the lockers and screamed, "I'll kill you all, just die." At this point, a few girls started quietly crying. Then, the most terrifying thing happened. One of the men, dressed as a clown, ran up to my class door, banging and screaming. Multiple people were crying now. One of my friends whispered to me, "We're all going to perish." I started crying too. The man swiftly moved away from our door, and his screams slowly faded down the corridor. After another 2 hours, the principal came on the loudspeaker, surprisingly, explaining everything. He said that just after 11, 2 men walked into the school, one holding a kitchen knife and a camera. They ran around the school, threatening to unalive students, and once police raided the school, they only caught one. No one was hurt. The school got over 20 buses to take the younger kids home, and the kids in 9th grade and over, like me, were told to walk home in groups, and call the cops if we saw anything suspicious. I had a hard week at school, thinking that the second man would return, with a gun or something, but nothing happened. Nonetheless, this will be scarred into my mind forever. The second one, as far as I know, has not yet been caught, but at this point, I feel like they are not looking for him, as it's been over a year, but the thought of him still planning an attack on the school has made me a lot more cautious when walking to school. Since then, the school has hired a few campus police officers, and have installed some auto-locking features on doors and windows. When the lockdown alarm goes off, this had made me feel a little bit better in school, but this just isn't something that you can forget about. It stays around forever. I have seen so many stories about school lockdowns. I never expected one to happen to me. I live in the middle of nowhere. We have maybe 500 students in total in my school, enough for everyone to know everyone's name. The last time we got a new student was 2 years ago. The familiar yet eerie chime of "Please remain in your classes until further notice" rang through the building over the intercoms. It was surprisingly calm, despite it not saying that it was a drill. Then again, despite our little town, crime isn't completely unheard of. "I bet it's a robber down at Chase Bank," Kyle said, smiling. Jade, shoved under her lab desk across the aisle, shushed him. She was in my chem class a hot minute ago. Her jumpiness doesn't surprise me, based on her previous reaction to our mixing experiment. "Relax. No one's in the school," Kyle said once again, and yet still his voice has dropped a couple notches in volume. His eyes turned to me. "Sam, what do you think?" I didn't feel much like talking. I ran a finger through the line of dust under my desk, shrugging. "I don't know, probably a robber," I said quietly. "Exactly." Kyle's voice was beginning to get louder, only interrupted by our teacher Ms. Sander herself shushing him. Jade looked pretty smug. It was about 10 minutes of bated breaths until, like most high schoolers tend to, we all lost our patience. Even Jade herself was now chattering softly to whoever was sat next to her at this point in time. I don't quite recall who it was, to be quite honest. It sounded like fireworks at first, as if someone had stamped on some of those pop rocks. We'd all seen the news enough lately to know what it was though. Even Kyle, who had been previously debating who would win in a fight, Mario or Kirby, grew silent. Ms. Sander moved swiftly to the doorway, peering out from behind a corner. The heaviness in the air was suffocating. We heard it again, louder. Remember when your history teacher would slam a book on the desk of a sleeping student, to startle them awake? That's what it sounds like, a gunshot echoing through a hallway. A girl across the room, I think Tori based on the voice alone, let out a muffled sob of fear. I didn't bother looking up at Kyle, I focused my attention on the door, leaning out from under my desk to peer through the window. I'm not sure what I expected to see, but whatever I was expecting, a whole lot of nothing, was not it. The hallway was empty and dark, as it tends to be when no one is in it. The lights, they're all automated and then they turned on. A wave of yellow light bathed over the room we were huddled up in, casting shadows against the rows of desks. Someone somewhere tried to calm the crying girl, but I could hear their own murmured voice waver. More bangs, loud this time, you could practically feel the walls vibrate with the sound. It was like fireworks, but different at the same time. I don't really know how to describe them, but I can tell you about the feeling deep down in the pit of you where you know that the curtains of life are closing on you. Where you can feel death's cold fingertips grip your shoulder, practically begging you to dig your own grave. It's as if time froze the second he walked by the window. I felt my heart beat wildly as the doorknob shifted. My vision grew static as I pulled my knees to my chest, curling up tightly under the desk that was meant to save my life. I don't remember if I was breathing or not. The door shook as someone banged on it repeatedly. I was surprised that the door stayed hinged. Someone screamed, several shots rang out, aimed through the window into the bodies of the scared students that were visible from outside the door. There is, still a surprisingly small amount of blood surrounding the bodies. Tori, Hayden, Mason, 3 in my classroom alone. They're lying there right now. Hayden and Tori's eyes are both open, staring wide into the nothingness. Mason, I can't see from where I am, not his face, only his white Skechers, stained red from the gaping hole in Tori's face, the girl he was only trying to comfort. We're still waiting for police to arrive. You see, the average response time is a half hour between the police dispatch and our school. I don't know if the man will come back. It's only been 10 minutes and after all, there's only so many classrooms, it's such a small school.